Welcome to Barbara's Bulletin, the podcast where we bring you the latest news and updates from around the world. We have a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. The situation in the Middle East is escalating, with reports of increased violence and tensions between Israel, Iran, and Lebanon. According to recent news, Israeli strikes have hit targets in Lebanon, resulting in dozens of casualties and displacing thousands of civilians. The Israeli military has issued evacuation warnings for areas near Hezbollah's facilities, citing concerns over the group's activities. Meanwhile, the United States has been involved in airstrikes against Iran, with President Donald Trump facing criticism from some European leaders, including Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. In response to Spain's refusal to allow the use of its military bases for attacks on Iran, Trump has threatened the country with a trade embargo. In related news, hospitals in Lebanon are struggling to cope with the influx of wounded civilians, and humanitarian organizations are sounding the alarm over the growing crisis. The international community is calling for calm and restraint, but so far, a peaceful resolution seems elusive. As the conflict continues to unfold, we'll be keeping a close eye on developments and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. It's a complex and sensitive situation, and we'll strive to provide balanced and unbiased coverage. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're halfway through our show, and I'm excited to dive into our next story. Today, we're looking at two significant developments in international relations. First, let's examine the reaction of European leaders to the recent U.S.-Israeli military strikes in Iran. The attacks have sparked a heated debate about the principles of international law and the role of the European Union in upholding them. According to reports, the EU has been hesitant to condemn the U.S.-Israeli strikes outright, instead opting for a more cautious approach that emphasizes restraint and respect for international law. This stance has raised questions about the EU's commitment to upholding the principles of non-aggression and territorial integrity, as enshrined in the UN Charter. In contrast, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has firmly condemned both the U.S.-Israeli attacks and Iran's retaliatory strikes, citing the need for all parties to respect international law. The EU's reluctance to take a stronger stance on the issue has been attributed to its close relationship with the United States and a desire to avoid directly challenging its ally. Meanwhile, in a related development, the European Union is facing scrutiny over its own commitment to upholding international law. Historically, the EU has been a strong advocate for the principles of international law, but recent events have raised concerns about its willingness to prioritize these values when they conflict with the interests of its key allies. A recent podcast from EU Observer explored this issue in more depth, examining the EU's response to the U.S.-Israeli strikes and what it might mean for the future of international relations. The podcast noted that while the EU has been critical of the Iranian regime's human rights record, its silence on the legality of the U.S.-Israeli strikes has been striking. As we consider these developments, it's essential to approach the issue with a nuanced understanding of the complex geopolitical dynamics at play. While the EU's relationship with the United States is undoubtedly important, it's also crucial that the EU remains committed to upholding the principles of international law, even when they are challenging or unpopular. In conclusion, the European Union's response to the U.S.-Israeli strikes in Iran has raised important questions about its commitment to international law and its role in promoting peace and stability in the region. As we continue to monitor this situation, it's essential to prioritize fairness, balance, and a deep understanding of the complex issues at stake. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, let's take a closer look at the ongoing conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. The situation has been escalating rapidly, with both sides engaging in military strikes and retaliations. The international community is watching closely, with many leaders expressing concern about the potential consequences of this conflict. The US and Israel have defended their actions as preemptive strikes aimed at preventing Iranian aggression. However, many experts argue that these actions may be in violation of international law. The European Union has called for restraint and a return to diplomatic efforts, while other nations, such as Russia and China, have criticized the US and Israel's actions. As the conflict continues to unfold, it's essential to consider the potential implications for global stability and security. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has already led to an increase in energy prices, and the humanitarian situation in the region is becoming increasingly dire. It's also worth noting that this conflict has sparked a debate about the role of international law in regulating military actions. Some argue that the rules-based order is being eroded as powerful nations prioritize their own interests over diplomatic efforts and multilateral agreements. As we strive to make sense of these complex developments, it's crucial to remain informed and engaged. We must consider multiple perspectives and evaluate the evidence carefully, avoiding simplistic or biased narratives. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay engaged.